Welcome back to the online symposium Pioneers of Education. Today I have the pleasure to speak with Mugove Nika. He was originally a school teacher beginning in 1982, working with various school communities, first as a high school geography teacher. Since the mid-90s, though, he's been promoting permaculture in school communities, first in Zimbabwe and then across other African countries. And he is a founding member of Regional Schools and Colleges Permaculture Program, also known as ReSCOPE. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Rob, and greetings to all the viewers.
So I'm very curious to learn more about the ReSCOPE program and seeding schools, but let's first start perhaps how you made this transition from being a high school geography teacher into the work of permaculture, and maybe even let's start with a brief description about what permaculture is, as maybe that's something new for some people out there.
From my high school geography teaching to working with school communities promoting permaculture has been actually a lifelong journey, because it actually dates back to my childhood, when I grew up with my grandmother, who was a traditional organic farmer in a village in southern Zimbabwe. During that time, I had a privileged upbringing, because the environment around my village was natural, and the food that I ate was produced organically, and it was also very diverse. And apart from that, we also enjoyed a lot of wild harvests. So as young boys, we used to spend quite significant amount of time in the bush looking after the village cows. And when we did so, we never took food with us. We would always enjoy what the bush had an offer, such as wild fruits, wild mushrooms. We would be able to catch fish from the river, and so we had a lot of things that made our day. And when we went back home in the evenings, we never looked forward to dinner, because we always had good food from the bush. Now, as I went on to high school and left the village, significant changes took place. So when I eventually started working and had a family and went back to the village with my children, I could no longer show them the abundance that I used to enjoy in my childhood. So a lot of the vegetation was destroyed in the name of modern farming. So farmers cleared all the trees, and as a result, there were massive erosion of the soils, which went into the rivers, and so a lot of the natural environment that I used to enjoy in my childhood had been destroyed. So this is really at the heart of what made me start promoting permaculture in schools, because I felt that was the answer to all the destruction that I've witnessed going on in my community and other communities around the continent. So permaculture provides me and the communities with the tools to regenerate the environment and bring back the natural abundance that I used to enjoy as a child. So this is why I have, for the greater part of my working life, been promoting permaculture in school communities.
That's such a touching story. to hear the abundance that was once there and then to see it go and wish to restore that. Where were you able to get training in permaculture, or were you drawing on information you'd learned from your family?
Yeah, part of my permaculture knowledge, I think, is basically traditional knowledge that I picked up from my grandparents. But I managed to also do the permaculture course, the permaculture design course, because when I was looking for the answer to the problems that my communities are facing, I realized that there was a permaculture center in my country, Zimbabwe, because in 1987, Bill Mollison did his first visit to Africa, and he conducted the first permaculture course in our neighboring country of Botswana. And the Zimbabweans who attended that course were so inspired that in 1988, they established the first permaculture training center on the continent, which is called Fambidzanai Permaculture Center. So when I was teaching high school geography, part of the syllabus was agricultural geography. And we were teaching the children that the Green Revolution was the answer to Africa's farming problems and also problems of hunger and malnutrition. But having had a background in the village where traditional agriculture was producing healthy food for everyone, I did not accept that the Green Revolution was the way forward for Africa. So I was always looking for an answer. So when I discovered that there was a permaculture center in my country, I quickly went to enroll for a course. So after I did the permaculture design course, that just changed my world, and I decided to start sharing permaculture with schools because I had, prior to that, been working in schools. So since then, I've never looked back, and I've been sharing with the various school communities about permaculture. So that's how the connection was made.
What's so interesting is you're talking about a need that's arisen out of the community, whether it was the communities you grew up in that you returned to that no longer had that abundance you once saw. There is a need for a practice like permaculture to restore that abundance. Throughout Zimbabwe or around the world, why do we need permaculture as part of a child's education in 2019?
Yeah, it is very important because the world view that we currently have in Zimbabwe and across the continent and throughout the world is the one that is creating a lot of problems that we are facing now. We have the wrong mindsets. So permaculture, the first thing that communities benefit from engaging in permaculture is to challenge this conventional worldview that looks at nature as just something to be exploited, and that looks at economic growth, which does not take into consideration the natural capital, the value of the natural capital, and the need to retain the health of the natural capital and also the health of the people. So we have a mindset which is, to say the least, destructive, which is actually helping people to commit slow suicide by destroying the very home that they live. So this destructive Western model of development is something that people begin to see differently when they have been exposed to things like permaculture education, eco-village design education. So the first real advantage of engaging in permaculture is to try to switch the mindsets of people to have a worldview which looks at nature as the foundation of life and the need to live in harmony with nature. In addition to that, permaculture provides the techniques, relevant techniques, that enable people to live in harmony with nature so that they can be truly sustainable in whatever they are doing. So permaculture, in addition, provides us with the design tools that we need to create environments around us that are regenerative, that will enable us to live a more sustainable life going forward. So permaculture is just what I've always been looking for in terms of trying to bring back the natural abundance that I enjoyed in my childhood.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned bringing about a new worldview with permaculture. I'm curious if you've faced any opposition from other worldviews, or you as a leader and a pioneer bringing this to Zimbabwe, if you've been met with resistance or challenges to spreading this message.
Yeah, if you are to ask me what has been my greatest challenge in my work, it's without doubt the opposing worldviews, the dominant worldview that is prevailing in our communities, and especially within those in leadership. So basically, we have many adults, and that includes teachers, school heads, Ministry of Education authorities. The basic problem that I face in my work is that they think that the Western model, the Western worldview, is what should be promoted, and as a result, they find the natural worldview to be antagonistic to them, and so the mindsets are the greatest challenge that I'm facing in my work.
And what do you say to people when you're met with this resistance from them, or they're accusing this mindset of being anachronistic or an old way of thinking? Is there some way that you can connect to them as a person to perhaps show them closer to the truth of what you're saying?
Yes, there is a lot that I say to them. For example, the main reason why we have this opposing view is that people have low levels of ecological literacy. That's what I attribute to the antagonism that people have against a natural worldview, is that they don't see nature as something in order, something that they understand fully. So after explaining how nature works and how we can benefit from working with nature rather than against it, when they understand all this, then over time they become also convinced that this approach is the way to go. So it's partly built on lack of understanding of the ecosystem, how the ecosystems work, and the natural science behind it. So, but it takes a lot to change mindset. So it's not something that takes place quickly. It really requires active engagement over time to get people to appreciate the different worldview that they need to understand and look at.
Yeah, it sounds like you're educating the adults just as much as the children who are in the schools that you end up working with.
Yeah, actually, I found in my work that it is more difficult to educate the adults than it is the children. In my work, I found children to be the best learners in the world, and I need very little effort to convince the children and to get them to do the right thing. But with adults, it's quite a big challenge. And that is actually one reason why I feel that working with the school communities is the way to go, because if you try to, for example, ask farmers to adopt permaculture techniques, the first reaction that they have is that it is too big a risk to take to try this new innovation when their whole lives depend on farming. The food on the table for the family depends on farming. So they would ask themselves, what if the new innovations do not work? Then they cannot feed their families, they cannot get money for school fees for their children. So it's a big ask for them. But if, on the other hand, I go to a school and I say, let us demonstrate this new innovation, nobody depends on the land within the school for food or for something important. So school land is immediately available for innovations. And what we then do is that we always see schools as having not only teachers and children, but also the parents. So when we start demonstrations within the school grounds, we invite the parents to come and work with the teachers and the children to demonstrate the permaculture innovations. And this way, the farmers, who are the parents, will gradually develop confidence in the permaculture techniques. And when they see it working on school land, they are now in a better position now to go and try on their own farms, because they've seen it working on another piece of land. So it is quite effective to work through school communities. And not only that, but because children are so receptive, they are very open to new ideas. The adults always say, I've been farming for 25 years. What new tricks can you teach me? So they have got a know-it-all attitude, but children are very, very open-minded and willing to get new ideas. And the other reason why it is very important to work with the school communities is that every farmer every person is in a school catchment area. Everybody has got a local school near them. So we can reach everyone by working through school communities, schools, because the farmers, for example, visit their nearest school for many reasons. So in many communities, schools are natural community centers, because the communities visit the school sometimes to attend church services, sometimes to hold meetings, community meetings. So if they see that there are new innovations at their school, they then take interest and might want to learn more, and that's where they can then acquire the confidence to go and try the permaculture techniques in their own farms.
I'm really touched by your use of the word communities. Normally, when I think of school communities, I often think of the closed-in community within the school, maybe the teachers, the students, extended staff, possibly some parents who get involved. But my definition of school communities doesn't involve or typically doesn't involve the wider town, city, village that the school is in. It really sounds like, though, your perspective is that those are not isolated. What happens in the school can ripple out and affect the way community around the school is living. They're just as much a part of it.
Yes, when we start working with schools, we find that schools have now become islands in their community. Parents just send their children to school, and they have no interest in what is going within the school. And as a result, both the parents and the teachers lose out, because by not having the parents actively engaged in their school activities, it means that the wisdom which is in the community is not being shared with the school. And so there are many gray-haired people in the community who are libraries of wisdom. And so if there is no active engagement of the community within the school, all that wisdom is kept out of the school. And on the other hand, if the parents are not taking an active interest in the school, it means the school loses out on the contributions that the community can make, and also the parents miss the opportunity of also using the school as their own learning center, so that they can learn some new things from their local school. So for us, a school is a community, it's a whole community of all the people who associate themselves with their local school. And that includes all the parents that have their children in the school, the community leaders, and the whole community is connected to their local school. That's how we always define a community in the work that we are doing.
Can you share with us one of your success stories entering into one of these communities and the change that you've seen ripple out?
Yeah, so I can take a school called St. Margaret's Primary School in South Central Zimbabwe. It's in Weza district of Zimbabwe. And when we first visited the school, we found that in the morning, the children were asked to sweep the school grounds before they start lessons. So they were maintaining a clean, neat, bare area around the classrooms, which they had to sweep with brooms. And then you have a cloud of dust enveloping the whole school. And also the children were asked to plant some flowers around the classrooms, flowers which they were watering. And then when we talked to the children, we found out that the majority of the children came to school without breakfast. They had not had any breakfast, and they did not carry any food with them to school, so they spent the whole day hungry, and yet they were making effort to maintain a barren landscape, a desert, together with also maintaining some flowers, some of which are extremely poisonous. And also the sweeping was spreading dust-borne diseases like TB. So we found it extremely unfair that the hungry children were maintaining an unproductive landscape. And then when we started working with the school, they realized the importance of doing what we call functional landscaping, where the school landscape tries to meet the needs, the basic needs of the members of the school, particularly the children. And a big part of the functional landscaping is edible landscaping, because in many of these communities, the high levels of malnutrition, for example, in this school that I'm talking about and many others, the levels of standing in children are well over 40%. So almost 1 in every 2 children is stranded. And yet the school land, and the school that I'm talking about had 5 acres of land. The minimum school size of land in Zimbabwe is 4.5 hectares, 4.5 acres of land. And all this land is just used for ornamental purposes. So they started following our advice, and they embraced permaculture techniques. So they started growing food within the school grounds. And within a few months, they were able to harvest some of the herbs to use in making tea, for example. Lemongrass is one of the first herbs they started growing, and they would then use this to make herbal tea. So the teachers stopped buying tea leaves, and that really motivated them, because they saw that it was having an impact on their lives. And then they started harvesting vegetables from the school land. And within a year, the first pawpaws and the bananas were harvested. And so after about 2 years, the school children could see bunches of bananas peeping through the window. The same land that they used to sweep every morning. So they from the time they started working with us, they stopped sweeping. So the environment became less dusty, because instead of bare ground, we had a food forest. The teachers and children and parents became so motivated that at this particular school, we had the school head teacher was transferred. So a new school head teacher came in, and he came in with the conventional mindset. So when he got into the school, he was shocked to find a forest, a bush within the school grounds, because for him, a school is supposed to be neat and tidy, and have just flowers and an orderly landscape. So he started using his authority to ask for the bush to be cleared. But unfortunately, the people that made up the school, the community, they were so well motivated by how they were benefiting from this food forest that they defended their land use pattern, and managed to convince him that it was not proper for the food forest to be cleared. And that was amazing, because head teachers have got a lot of authority, but because the teachers, the children, and the parents united to defend their land use system, the headmaster had to give in, and he was slowly then educated, and he became eventually one of our pillars of support for the project. When the school had produced enough seedlings to plant all over the school grounds, the school started giving children seedlings to go and plant it at their homes. So they started going to emulate the land use at the school in their own small farms. And we were amazed. One day we visited a homestead, and the child had created his own small corner in the family garden, where he was practicing the permaculture techniques that he was learning at school. And we saw that the children were actually the agents of change within the community, because the child was now teaching the parents about permaculture. And that was an amazing story from this school that we experienced. So yeah, it has been exciting, and this program has now become regional, because whoever visits one of our schools, they really become inspired. And so when we started this work in Zimbabwe in 1994, people who visited us from neighboring countries, they were so excited about the transformation that took place, transformation of both minds and landscapes. It's so startling that these people from other countries asked us to share our experiences with them. So in 2007, we started a regional program that is ReSCOPE, where we are now promoting this approach in more and more African countries. So far, we have been to 5 countries: Malawi, Zambia, Uganda, Kenya, and Zimbabwe. So we have in each of these countries schools and colleges permaculture programs, and overall we have worked with more than 200 schools in the region, and they have all their own story of transformation to tell, and it's really striking to see photographs of the school before the permaculture, and then 2 years later, the same school becomes a totally new landscape with a food forest all over the place. So it is really work that has always kept us going because of the exciting results that come as a result of this work.
I want to, in a moment, discuss more about the work you're doing with ReSCOPE and the nature of some of the projects, but I was just really touched hearing this example and imagining the other examples of school transformation towards abundance and sustainability. In the school experience of these children, what does producing and eating their own food in accordance with nature provide to a student that's so important for their life as they develop? Why is this experience potentially so transformative and vital for a child to experience?
Yeah, it's transformative in a number of levels. Firstly, and most important, is to get the child to enjoy organic fruits and vegetables from the school land. This is particularly important because in their homes, we do baseline surveys before we start working with the schools. So we ask them what they eat on a typical day, and we find the children spend months without eating a fruit, just a fruit. So the first and most important part is that they start enjoying healthy food, because the vitamins that are in fruits and vegetables are so crucial for their physical development, for their mental development, that the real access to fruits and vegetables is the first major thing. Then the second thing is the life skills that they gain by learning how to produce food, and then producing this food naturally. That's so crucial. Then the other thing is that the permaculture approach to producing food is also a very important experience for the child, because at home they are practicing industrial agriculture, which is very labor intensive. For example, they spend hours weeding on the family farm, fighting weeds. They spend a lot of time digging the ground, tilling the soil. And as a result, when we ask children in school what they want to do when they become adults, none of them want to be farmers, because they associate farming with back-breaking work, hard labor, fighting weeds and tilling the soil. And that aspect now is not part of the permaculture way of farming, because we just teach them to mulch. And mulch just means throwing rubbish on the soil. which is very easy. And once they do that, they prevent tillage, because once the soil is covered, it is kept soft. So we don't have to dig. They don't have to dig. They just have to put in the seed into the soil. And also by mulching, they prevent weeds from growing. And so no weeding, no tillage, just a matter of sowing seed and harvesting. So that makes farming so easy for them. And also through this type of farming, they get engaged in ecological science. They begin to understand how nature works. And this they find very fascinating to understand, for example, how mulch prevents weeding. Then the other thing is that when we ask children what they want to do as adults, the other reason why they don't want to be farmers is that they associate farming with poverty, because they see their parents just laboring without getting much income. And it's because the industrial farming approach that they've been used to is promoting monoculture. They just grow the staple crop. They have one harvest per year. And because everyone is growing that same staple crop, the prices of these staple crops are very low. So farmers are in a vicious cycle of poverty. And so when we do permaculture, the children realize that there is power in diversifying farming. So in permaculture, they practice intercropping, where they diversify the farming. So that diversifies the sources of income. That also means income can come throughout the year. They don't just have one harvest. They've got different fruits ripening at different times. And all these are sources of income. And that's a sure way out of poverty, because they have multiple sources of poverty, of income. And also, we now have climate change, which all our communities are aware of. And with the industrial agriculture, the crop failures are increasing every time because they are growing crops that come from factories, the hybrid seeds that are not drought tolerant, and they are grown using practices that are not climate smart. So with permaculture, the resilience just is amazing. It's possible to get harvests in spite of the changing climate, because, for example, a lot of the permaculture farming is about tree crops. Once trees are established, they are very resilient, they are very resistant to drought, and so harvests are ensured. And we have many techniques for conserving water, which are part of the permaculture land use. And so, yes, there are so many benefits that the children experience when they start engaging in permaculture. So much that we have seen that, for example, schools go on holiday, but where the children have been doing permaculture, teachers don't have to ask children twice to come to school during the holidays, because the children are so excited, because they know that the time they come to the school, they will find something ripe to eat. So they will enjoy the harvesting even during the holidays. So they are so motivated, they don't need to be pushed to do anything. So it's really transformative, the experience of permaculture in schools.
And what can you tell me about some of the specific work either ReSCOPE is doing, or what seeding schools are?
Yes, we have developed a whole set of tools for promoting permaculture in schools. So we have developed what we call integrated land use design, ILUD, ILUD in short. This is a process that we have developed for introducing permaculture in schools. So it's a step-by-step process for helping school communities to benefit from permaculture. And we have 5 basic steps in the process. So when we start working with a particular school, we ask the parents to be invited to the school. So we get the parents, the teachers, and the children to form a group of about 40, which represents the whole community. And this group of 40, we invite them to come to the school for a period of 1 week, where they go through the 5 steps of integrated lattice design. So we facilitate a process with them where they end up redesigning the school landscape, and where they end up with a plan for implementing permaculture within their school. So the 5 steps, I'll just briefly describe them. The first step, we call it grounding the school community in this work that they wanted to start, the work of implementing permaculture. And by grounding, we mean reconnecting the school community with 3 things. Firstly, reconnecting them with their history. We find that in Africa, for example, a lot of the communities do not have correct description of their past, their history. Just to give an example, in Zimbabwe, we have the Victoria Falls, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world, which I think most people can remember, can know. And in the history, the communities are taught that this Victoria Falls was discovered by David Livingstone. He was the first man to see the Victoria Falls, which is completely false, because it was our people who took Livingstone to the Victoria Falls, and they showed him the Victoria Falls. But in the history books, the people here are taught that David Livingstone was the first man to discover the Victoria Falls. Another example is that we have a national monument. Zimbabwe means house of stone. And we have an ancient city that was made of stone, which is in Zimbabwe, and that's where the country got its name. And in history, people are taught that that city was built by the Arabs who were coming to trade with the African communities there. And yet it's not true. The truth is that the monument was built, this city was built by the Africans to make the headquarters for their king at that time. So we have a lot of falsehoods within the history of the people in Africa. So we reconnect them to the true history. So the history that they learn is their story. That is the story of the people who have been teaching them, which are, that's one of the colonial legacies in Africa, where we got the people learning the history from the European perspective and not from the African perspective. So we reconnect them with their true past. That's one. The second thing, we are also reconnecting these school communities with their culture. That sounds strange, because one would think that people are already connected to their culture, but unfortunately that's no longer the case. Again, because of the colonial legacy, a lot of Africans wake up every morning to be like an American or a typical Western person. So they dream of one day living an American lifestyle, a European lifestyle. So that also means that even anything to do about their culture, they admire European culture, Western culture, and they have long abandoned the African culture. So we have, for example, young African girls who get dangerous skin lightening creams so that they can look European, because they have long lost their own self-identity. So we try to reconnect the school communities with their own culture, with their African roots. Then the third part is that we reconnect the school community with nature. We have children in some of our communities who think that milk comes from the supermarket. So they need to be reconnected with nature to know that the food actually comes from nature, not from the supermarket. So this is the first step of ILUT, to reconnect the school communities with their history, with their nature, and with their culture. Then once we get this reconnection, this is where we get a shift of mindset. So what we are doing here to change the mindset from the Western worldview to the community worldview, the grounded worldview, a worldview that is grounded in their own environment, in their own culture, and in their own previous past. So that's the idea of this first step. So once we get a change of mindset, we move on to the second step, which we call situational analysis. In situational analysis, we are now looking at the existing situation. We ask them, what resources do you have to start permaculture in your school? And when we ask this question, the communities become baffled, because to them, they are convinced that they are poor, they have nothing. Because for the last 100 years, people have been coming to their community to ask them, what do you need? So people are very quick to say, we don't have, we need the roads, we need the clinics, we need hospitals, we need electricity, we need. So this over 100 years has put a poverty label on the communities. So they think they have nothing, because everybody comes to ask them, what do you need? So when we ask them, what do you have? They become confused, because to them, they are poor, they have nothing. We should ask them, what do you need? Because they have nothing. So we facilitate them opening minds to see the resources that they have. We tell them that Africa is the richest continent in the world, and they don't believe that at first, but we labor to show them that they are actually very rich. They have the best climate in the world. They have very good farmlands. They have they are endowed with a lot of wealth, including human resources. So that's the second step, to look at what they have to start permaculture with. And then once we show them that they actually have resources, we then move on to the third step, where we ask them now to dream big. What future do they want? After 35 years of implementing permaculture, what do they want their school to look like? What do they want their school to have? So we invite them to dream about a good future coming out of working with permaculture. So they describe what they want to have on their land, in their school grounds. They describe that. Once they have a clear vision of where they want to go, we move on to the fourth step, which is to redesign the land, to redesign the school grounds. So if they want to have a lot of fruits, where should they be grown? If they want to keep some animals, where should they be kept? So we now use the permaculture land use design skills to place things at the right place, to create connections between the various things that need to be on this piece of land. And then finally, we then help them to come up with a plan for implementing and monitoring their new design, their new vision. So a work plan, who should do what and when, to make sure that their vision becomes a reality on the ground. So once we do that, that will be the end of the 5 days. Then we leave them to follow their work plan for implementing and monitoring their permaculture activities. And then we provide monitoring support. Once in a while, we visit them to find out what challenges they are facing, and to provide them with further advice on what they need to do. So that's how we work with a particular school. But we have moved on further now. We are now as ReSCOPE or SCOPE Zambia, SCOPE Zimbabwe. We are no longer directly just working with the school. We are now asking schools to identify local organizations, community-based organizations, non-government organizations, faith-based organizations that are in their locality. And then we are sharing our skills, the integrated land use design skills, with these local organizations so that the local organizations will be able to provide the schools with the backup and monitoring support. And also these local organizations will have a multiplier effect on our work because they can work with other schools on their own once they acquire the skills that ReSCOPE has developed over the years. So we are now sharing our skills to build the capacity of other NGOs and CBOs and faith-based organizations. So that's how we are now working. For example, in Zambia, we have 17 local organizations that we are currently working with.
It's incredible because hearing you explain the process, your first 3 steps are really about connecting a person, grounding them, connecting them back to their culture, their history, before maybe what would be classified as action comes in, the actual permaculture. It seems so vital that you're speaking to the whole person and helping them develop that new worldview, that new mindset, that they're not just the same person doing new farming, new permaculture actions or activities or practices. It really sounds like the work ReSCOPE is doing is to fundamentally help grow these people and develop their worldview into more abundance.
Yes, that's we find it to be very holistic work, which we feel is able to not only transform the landscapes but also the minds of the people.
How could other educators, either who are interested in permaculture or may have other holistic interests, what could they learn from you or bring into a more conventional school setting? Let's say, and it's someone in Zimbabwe who does have a headmaster who's still a very traditional or maybe Western influenced headmaster. If a teacher is listening to this who finds themselves in that situation, what advice would you have for them to change something within their current situation?
Yes, the first advice that would give them is that for the change to really happen and to be sustainable, they should first start working together. The conventional, there are many people who are promoting school gardens in Africa and other parts of the world, but it's typically a situation where they get a group of children who form a club, maybe 30 to 40 children, and these 30 to 40 children work with an individual teacher, and then they are allocated a corner of the school to develop a garden. So that's typically what happens. So we feel that this is not sustainable. So what would advise will give is that the first thing is to have a participatory process, to open up the work to as many stakeholders as possible. So rather than having a small number of people engaged, it should be a whole school approach. So that's what we call our approach, whole school approach. And the whole school means 2 things. It means all stakeholders being involved in the process. And secondly, the whole school environment being involved. So that means all the land that belongs to the school, from the entrance to the backyard and the buildings and the sports grounds, the whole school should be treated as one full unit, one whole unit of the environment. So when everybody works together and you work with the whole school, the advantages are as follows. Firstly, you find that because there is teamwork, the project becomes more resilient because different people bring different strengths, and so it's likely to be more sustainable. And when you are working with the whole school, you are also increasing the economies of scale. You are scaling up so that the food produced is not just for a handful, for a small group, but you're able to produce significant amounts that can impact all the children at the school. So the two pieces of advice would be to open up the project to all the stakeholders and to open up the project to all the land that belongs to the school. So if everyone works together with a bigger, the whole school environment, then the chances of success are much higher. So that's the two things: participatory whole school approach. That's really the best advice we can give to people who want to start on this road.
What's really struck me in our conversation is how everything you've mentioned that starts with one person ripples out into the whole community and into the whole landscape, and is making connections with everything involved. If people are wanting to learn more about the work that ReSCOPE is doing or wish to support you, where can they find you, either online, or what are some of the best ways to connect with you?
We have a website, www.seedingschools.org, seeding as in SEEDINGSCHOOLS.org. And we also are on email, and the email is ReSCOPE, RESCOPE, at seedingschools.org. And they can also reach us on WhatsApp, number +260 978 402 378. I will repeat the WhatsApp number again, +260 978 402 378. So we are also on Facebook, ReSCOPE Program, Facebook at ReSCOPE Program, and on Twitter at ReSCOPE Program. So people can reach us in various ways.
Excellent. And I feel I could just sit here and talk to you for hours. I find the nature of your work incredible, and also just the perspective and the heart that you bring to your work. I love hearing you discuss these projects, but knowing our time is coming to a close, is there anything else that you'd like to share, or that's on your heart, or that is central to the work that you're doing?
Yes, I would like to call upon everyone who is listening to just challenge them to work with their nearest school, with their local school. As I said before, everybody is within a school catchment area. Everybody knows a local school somewhere. So I'd like to challenge everyone to make a difference in their local school, either by supporting the school to start permaculture, by connecting the school to organizations that are promoting this work, and also just sharing about this work with more people, so that people can realize that the future that we all want is within reach, and a very effective way of doing it is to promote this through school communities. So for us, we use the schools as entry points into the community. So we see schools as natural demonstration centers where the whole communities can be ignited by seeing what is happening at their local school. So I would encourage everyone to share about this and to make their local school realize that there is this opportunity to make a mark as a school to transform their schools and to transform their communities. So please feel free to share with our work and to support the work that we are doing in any school in the world. So thank you very much. We wish everyone all the best in trying something with their local school.
Govinika, thank you so much for the work you're doing and the impact you're having on so many communities. This is incredible, important, and just work that serves abundance in this world. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Rob. It's always a pleasure to share about this work because it brings us a lot of energy, and so we are always ready to share on this exciting work. And thank you for the opportunity to explain and to share with other people what we are doing. Thank you.
Truly my pleasure. Thank you.